Welcome to TechBabble. Today we're talking about Google's ambitious hardware gambit, the Nexus program. Let's take a trip back to 2010. YouTube is beginning to flex its muscles, the iPhone 4 is winning hearts and minds, and Inception is twisting our very reality. It's at this moment that Google announces its entrance into the hardware game. Well, sort of. At this point, Android devices of every shape and size were flooding onto the market. Except they weren't pure Android, not really. For most Android users, Google's OS is fragmented into hundreds of different versions. It's still Android deep down in the inner workings, but it's not a pure Android experience. Depending on the device and mobile carrier, default apps will be different. It'll look and navigate differently. There's no end of proprietary apps that can't be removed from it, aka bloatware. But the thing that galled Android purists the most was their update situation. You are more or less at the mercy of your hardware manufacturer and wireless carrier to update your phone's OS. So if you had, say, Gingerbread 2.1 and Google just announced Gingerbread 2.2, there was really no way for you to get it short of rooting your device and installing a ROM on it. Same for security updates. And this was a major pain point for Android purists. They wanted a clean, stock Android experience, direct from Google with no bloatware and consistent updates. But how? At the same time, Google's executives found themselves in an interesting predicament. Their operating system had eclipsed Apple's to be the most popular on the market, and yet, they had no hardware to call their own. Rather than try to spin up their own in-house manufacturing program, they chose to partner with existing device manufacturers. The result was competent hardware and a pure Android experience. Android enthusiasts got their stock Android experience with updates, while Google could test the hardware waters without upsetting the very manufacturers that relied on their operating system. Over the course of the Nexus program, Google put out 8 phones made by manufacturers including HTC, Asus, LG, Motorola, and Huawei. While they weren't really marketed to the public, the line of devices was generally well received by tech enthusiasts. And Nexus devices were considered something of a testbed for Google, who could polish and refine the definitive version of Android as they saw it. It was halcyon days. Here's the thing about technology. It's really all about who controls what and when. For example, Apple directly controls their hardware and the OS that runs on it. They select the manufacturers that create their products, they determine when to deploy the updates, and the source code for iOS is kept under strict lock and key. But what iOS lacks in openness, Apple gains in complete and utter platform control. They determine their user's experience from beginning to end, with little to no interference from carriers or other hardware manufacturers. It's hard not to imagine executives at Google at the time weren't looking at Apple's iron grip on their product ecosystem and wishing they had the same control. And I think it's this motivation that brings us to the end of the line of the Nexus program. Google pulled out all of the stops for their new in-house designed phone. They sourced the materials and components for it, created the design from scratch, and oversaw every aspect of its development. They launched a marketing campaign that not only took direct shots at Apple's products, but aimed for an audience much, much broader than the Android purists and ROM hackers the Nexus program had targeted in the first place. The Pixel's launch meant the writing was on the wall for the Nexus device line. When the Pixel launched, Google announced it had no plans to launch any other products under the Nexus marquee. In March of this year, Google officially announced it was ending support for the last 2 Nexus phones. So with the Nexus line all but dead and buried, what should we make of Google's initial foray into hardware? For people like me, who were looking for the purest incarnation of Android they could get, Nexus products were a godsend. Their decent technical specs, affordable price, and unlocked nature made me feel like I was buying hardware for me, rather than choosing what my carrier was trying to force on me. And I'm not alone. Companies like OnePlus are continuing to create powerful phones at affordable prices with non-intrusive versions of Android. The vision of Android that the original Nexus program had continues to live on. Not in name, but in spirit. Thanks for watching. Were you an early adopter of Nexus products? Did you like them? Did you hate them? Did I miss anything? Did we get any facts wrong? Let us know in the comments. If you liked the video, give us a like. If you want to see more videos like this, subscribe.